Hello and most welcome to 1463 of the H series. Sorry. It's a bit dusty, I think. I will today continue with a fantastic article by David Morris. And we have just discussed the dice, how the dice has in itself an inborn chirality, and that most regulated dices are left-handed. It's of course a convention, but it would be impossible to transfer that most important feature to another alien culture. Who do not share our innerness. It needs to be shown. It's an irreducible feature of the universe, and it's also foundational for all other inherent features. A sine qua non of existence, of space, and also of time. Time has in itself that tendency. Ja se kustaki.
Ja, szukając.
Where we ended off last time, 1461, I will continue, and it's currently into the triangle, which I will partly repeat. It is very telling and important part. The second paragraph on the right column, the 10th page. The argument above is that we cannot constitute the sense of left-handed die within the field of transcendentally reduced experience. Unless it, and hence thence the phenomenon of being, already exhibits certain characteristics that I try to capture under the heading of ontological chirality. To put it in Husserlian terms, in his later work, specifically The Origin of Geometry, Husserl shows how the sense triangle has its genesis in historical processes of writing down that take place in the life world. My point is that our sense left-handed die has its genesis in a kind of writing down that operates on a much deeper and pre-personal level. Before human scripts. Anterior to the life world as human life world. It depends on a certain operation of being that operates in advance of factual life. An operation that engender being as chiral, that enables life to generate itself as chiral, that inscribes life with chirality. I am suggesting that this sort of operation belongs to what Merleau-Ponty hints at when he speaks of a creative operation, endogenous to the phenomenal field. But even this creative operation is not enough. For determining which of an already generated chiral pair is to be called left would also need the writing down that Husserl writes about. Via shared history of encounters with reference to a shared being encountered. To a shared life world, pure communication of abstract information would not suffice. Put otherwise, we and our Asma counterpart can only communicate regarding the determinate sense of chirality if a shared being that already operates in generating chiral sense in a common life world and a shared history of writing down. Just give me a second here. Generating chiral sense in a common life world and a shared history of writing down of encounter in the life world. Determinantly articulates chiral sense as this or that. Left or right, active or passive, and so on. the deeper issue here is that this creative operation and what allows for chiral sense is an ontological chirality that cannot be secured or captured in advance by any sort of abstract analysis. It is radically contingent. That is my comment, dependent on where and who and what you are in that circumstance. Sense depends on an ontological differential architecture internal to being. But that architecture is not provable in advance. It is a contingent expression of being that has to do with a future yet to come. The genesis of sense rests in a throw of a die, but it is thrown by no one, from nowhere, toward nothing. And yet it lands someplace that makes sense and creates more sense to come. Yet for Merleau, Merleau-Ponty, it is somehow in being itself, although as a yet to come, to through itself to sense. Let me take something from the indices here. That Merleau-Ponty is serious about this point becomes especially clear in the institution lectures, where he writes that the instituted has sense without me. In the context of a discussion where time as passivity activity is said to be the very model of institution. Merleau-Ponty writes at UE 31 to 32 that there really is inspiration and expiration of being. Respiration in being, action and passion, so slightly discernible that one no longer knows who sees and who is seen. Very important here. Who paints and who is painted. But a slight discernibility of activity and passivity remains. And I would say like a trace only. And later he writes that circularity of speaking, listening, seeing, being seen, perceiving, being perceived. It is because of it that it seems to us that perception forms itself in the things themselves. Activity equals passivity. But the equal sign here does not remove the incongruence between activity and passivity, since the topic is reversibility as an act with two faces. In fact, the ability to indicate with the equal sign that activity and passivity are counterparts or equals precisely depends on the two maintaining separate faces. This separation of activity and passivity is central to Merleau-Ponty's lectures on passivity, where the course summary opens with the observation that the explication of perceptual experience must make us acquainted with the genus of being with regard to which the subject is not sovereign. without yet the subject being inserted in it. Here he is broaching the need for an account of passivity as a separate genus of being that is not reducible to a lack of activity. To my summary here. So for our perceiving subject, it takes so little activation to perceive that it becomes unnoticeable. Underneath the surface of all activity that shimmers along. We are no longer aware of the extremely little active sense that perception is. But that does not mean it completely disappears. Barely perceivable, but still there. The very, very small act of touching. Yeah. But when we calm down sufficiently in our activities, we will see that there is a projecting and then receiving constantly going on. It is as we are doing the spiraling, the twisting. It is our very activity, hardly perceptible, but still the very genesis of the life world. but still it's going on. It is not absolutely still. This is what meant by foundational chirality. The chirality is the after image of the act of touching or perceiving, the very, very little act that starts everything. Here, in that act, is the genesis of everything. It could be likened to, in the beginning was the sound, the word, the diminutive, small start that is now almost imperceptible. But it is still there. And the more we are able to sink into it, to experience this primur motor, the first moving, we will understand this is before, outside and inside. It is what founds inside and outside, constituting the exogenous and the endogenous. This is why chirality cannot be reduced to the outside or be understood exogenously. It is the irreducible first little move. smaller than a baby's hair twinkling in the wind. But when understood and enter into, interpenetrated, it will once more be lively, alert, and we will understand by doing very little things, like perceiving. We can move everything. It is also a freeing process. It is like engravings of prematurely made understandings coming in the wrong ordinal order. And thereby replacing ordinality that is first, second, third, and so on, with cardinality. Sets, masses, and we lose the quality and get stranded with quantity. In only quantity, cardinality, understanding gets diffused, obscured, reduced out. We jumble what is first and what is second, and then the chirality's informing capability gets reduced. It becomes less informative. The why is the most important feature in what is presenting itself. Think of an extremely small brush stroke that finishes off the smile of the Mona Lisa. If it's wrong, everything, every instant of the painting would be lost. That is the chirality of a painting. There is where everything is started. Only there can a change be made. Afterwards, it becomes very hard. It would seem as if the wheels are turning themselves, and exactly there we have the forgetfulness that Heidegger calls the amnesia. There everything starts. There is where the very beginning, the first incision is made. In beginning, it was the sound, the word, the perception. But once we slow down enough to see the process in action, to get to the understanding, we will be liberated to actually see what is happening, deepening our understanding. It is very close to be on the train if you want to catch a lift, you had to run at the same speed. But here, it is not the matter of catching up speed. It is about slowing down to that very movement where creation takes place. Only in that instant, before the instances, can a change be made, an understanding reached. And you will understand that the passive active is much more exacting, precise, defining. It is sine qua non for everything, and it has this specific direction. That is the directionality, that is the spiral, the chirality. And there you will find a point of rest, of relaxation. Slowly, slowly, the lack of being at proper pace with the becoming bears its toll on us. It takes away the energy of reality, of becoming. Colors, definitions, shades, all minute details, as well as the larger pictures. We can all reach into those. Because that is where the freshness is. And that specific friction, that perpetual stress, that load and that heaviness will slowly disappear and be shown to be knowledge. And you will once more be refreshed. I say thank you very much for your patience and have a very pleasant afternoon. Bye bye for now.